Commander Masters had a ton of hype coming into 2023, but it landed like a wet fart. However, we're here to tell you there are some cards that were printed specifically for the set that weren't reprints, and there's some good Commander cards in there.
We're going to dig through and we're going to get in the nitty gritty and tell you which ones we think have the most playability. And the video starts right now. Ja! Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We are looking at precon only Commander Masters. Brand new cards. These are not reprints. Jake, we're starting off here with Leori's Spark-Touched Hunter.
That's right. This is a possible commander. This came in the Guff deck, but this is a possible commander that you could run at the helm. That was kind of my idea when I picked this card. 1 white, 1 red, and 1 blue for Flying Vigilance, a 3/3 elemental cat. Kind of looks like my cat, except with wings. Whenever Leori's Spark-Touched Hunter deals combat damage to a player, choose a Planeswalker type. Until end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a Planeswalker of that type, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copies. So it's just a commander that guarantees you're going to be able to reverberate Planeswalker effects. That's the reason that I think this card should be considered. It's because it's fun to have at the helm of a janky Planeswalker Matters deck.
Yeah, in general, we avoided the super specific cards because with the Planeswalker deck, with the Sliver deck, with the Enchantments deck, there were some cards that are just like too narrow to play in any deck but that strategy. However, with Leori at the helm, you could get those copies of those abilities rolling, and they could be pretty good. This is another one, Jake, that's a little bit narrow but does provide some playability, and we'll tell you how. Calamity of the Titans is 4 colorless sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, you got to reveal a colorless creature card from your hand. Hey, artifact creature decks, you need to be looking at this card because you will have colorless creature cards in your hand. This card is not as narrow as it makes it seem, especially when you consider artifact creature decks are all over the place. It allows you to exile each creature and Planeswalker with mana value less than the revealed card's mana value. Jake, sounds like if you reveal a Blightsteel Colossus, literally everything is going to get exiled.
Yeah, I like it with, big artifact creatures like that, but obviously it makes a lot of sense in an Eldrazi Matters deck. You're going to have a lot of big creatures there that you can dependably find a big creature. So yeah, make sure that you're playing this in a deck with enough targets so that you're going to be able to get the most out of that 6 mana. But this is definitely a card worth considering, and probably a little bit of a budget card as well, because it does have that narrow text. Yeah,
you're going to want to make sure that you can hit more than like 30% of the creatures and Planeswalkers on the board. By the way, only 30% of you watching this video right now statistically are subscribed. If you don't want to be in the 70% anymore, jump into the 30% and hit that subscribe button, as Jake tells us about Desecrate Reality.
Yes, also from the Eldrazi deck, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target permanent that player controls with an even mana value. Instant speed, 7 cost here, and it has Adamant. If at least 3 colorless mana was spent to cast this spell, return a permanent card with an odd mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you're exiling stuff, you're returning stuff. It's a big high cost spell, so whenever a spell is high cost like this, you're going to get a big effect.
Yeah, I like that it doesn't have anything to do with colorless, and so you can run this in your ramp deck, you can run this in your casting free spells deck, you can run this in your copying spells deck and get a bunch of permanents. It does have, narrow use, but honestly, hitting any target that is 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, there's a lot of really good targets that you can hit for 4 and 6 and just absolutely ace their permanents. And then if you get any kind of copies or shenanigans going on this, I think it could be fun.
Take out a land, take out a big creature.
That's right.
I like it.
Target permanent, not target non-land permanent. Jake, we've got another colorless one here. We are doing these in, I think, collector number order. So we're going to kind of move through the decks as we pull out our favorite cards that could be in almost any deck. We realize we've seen some narrow ones here. Flayer of Loyalties, 8 and 2 colorless. This is 10 mana and it gives you 10 mana worth of value. Let me tell you, when you cast this spell, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Jake is already on board. These are some of his favorite effects in all of MTG.
That's right. This is a good effect.
Then you get to untap it, and until end of turn, it has base power toughness 10/10, gains trample, Annihilator 2, and haste. And then itself has Annihilator 2 and trample as a big old 10/10 threat. Jake, I'm so glad it says when you cast this spell and not when it ETBs, because if you threw this in a Conjurer's Closet, I think I would just scoop.
Oh, yeah, it's way too busted for that. Now, if you are able to return it to your hand and cast it again, if you're just living the big mana dream, then that's awesome. But yeah, this card can totally swing a game. I would love to already have a fervor type effect on the battlefield to make sure that I'm able to swing with this, because then you're taking something and you're swinging with both the Flayer and whatever you took. You're getting double or 4 Annihilator triggers. It's just a lot for an opponent to deal with. So yeah, I mean, players in the past, when we went to Zendikar and Worldwake, Rise of Eldrazi, and we were getting all of these monstrous spells. I remember as a kid, one of the things that I really loved seeing, there was the Phyrexian Juggernaut, which was like a 12/12 for 1. It had words that I didn't even really understand how the card worked, but I just knew if a card had big numbers on it, it was powerful. And so players have always gravitated toward Eldrazi. Just because they look crazy, they are game-ending cards. We like to end the game, so that's why you see so many Eldrazi cards on this list today. Because we're just talking about cards that people are going to figure it out. They're going to figure out how to play with it, whether it's It That Betrays or whether it's one of the OG Eldrazi Titans or these new ones. People are going to like them.
Yeah, I know if I can look at a big old creature and see that there's no weird caveat stuff that keeps it from being run in like a Kennen deck or something like that, where a huge ramp deck would want to just spit this out as quickly as possible. This is the kind of creature that just becomes the top end of a lot of decks. It's like, well, then I win with Flare of Loyalties and Blightsteel Colossus, right? This is in that same vein. So I think it's got some potential.
The only drawback is you just have to have a couple ways colorless to produce colorless. Right. So you need to have your Soul Ring.
Or cast it for free. That's what that's another way to try and do it is, pull it out of the library onto the battlefield, but you want it to be cast. You don't want it to be put onto the battlefield or you don't get the ability. That's really what it comes down to. But big, stompy, crazy stuff. The Eldrazi decks definitely provided that.
That's right. And next up, we have Rise of the Eldrazi, which is a card named after a set. Pretty crazy. And we have the 3 waste mana and 9 for sorcery. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target permanent. Target player draws 4 cards. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Rise of the Eldrazi. So we are doing all of the things. Again, you're going to need mana rocks, or you're going to need a couple wastes in the deck in order to play a card like this. But yeah, you're getting a lot for 12 mana here. This spell can't be countered, which is always amazing text, especially if you're spending 12 mana to cast something. Please, dear God, do not let it be able to be countered. And you're destroying a permanent. You're drawing 4 cards, unless you want somebody else to draw 4 cards, maybe a buddy in a 2-headed giant game. But otherwise, you're drawing 4 cards and then you're taking an extra turn. There's nothing more maddening than having to deal with someone taking an extra turn after doing all of this stuff.
Seriously, destroying any permanent doesn't have to be a non-land. I mean, look, Hidetsugu and Kairi. When Hidetsugu and Kairi dies, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana value. Holy shit. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. So there you go, Hidetsugu and Kairi deck players. I just found a new sorcery for your deck that you definitely need to find a spot for ASAP. That's how I want to use this card. I look at this card and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't care about the casting cost because I want to put this in a deck that cheats it out for free, that lets me destroy a permanent, draw 4 cards, and take an extra turn. And I got it through some free means, and I can copy it if I want to. Can't flash it back, can't do any shenanigans after that because it does exile itself, but we can copy it when we cast it. And so that is the kind of shenanigans use I want to do for Rise of the Eldrazi. Another shenanigans one is a saga that summons an 8/8 flying vigilance indestructible creature. Battle at the Hell Vault. 6 mana with 2 white in there for each player. it's yourself included, exile up to one target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until battle at the Hell Vault leaves the battlefield. So you're putting some stuff on ice. For yourself, you probably want to target some stuff that says enters the battlefield, leaves the battlefield. That's the kind of target that you want to go for there on you. And then in chapter 3, for your 6 mana, you're going to create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 creature token with flying, vigilance, indestructible. Pictured here fighting Grizzlebrand in the art. Not bad. And then you get your stuff back. They get their stuff back too. However, you get your ETBs. And you got an 8/8 flying, vigilant, indestructible. Right, you can plan for it. Exactly.
Yeah, I like this card. It has some really fun effects, and I'm always like, these sagas, man, they're backbreakers. And that is a lot of time to have stuff on ice. 2 turns, that's a pretty big deal, man. A lot can happen in 2 turns, and then you're getting an 8/8 with the most important text, which is indestructible. So they're going to have to figure out some way to exile it. If it does get exiled with the swords, you're gaining 8 life. So that's not that bad to come after, 6 mana of keeping stuff off the battlefield. And then, yes, if you plan for it and you're able to get some good ETBs or LTB triggers from this card, that's a big deal too.
Downside of that token being bounced, obviously, it just evaporates. It is what it is. But, I want to use those 2 removal chapters to target their commanders. It's like, do you want to just be without your commander fully for the however many turns until it comes back? Or do you want to bring it back to the command zone, raise that tax a little bit? Give them an interesting choice. Jake and enchantment decks got a lot of interesting choices for their deck, as though those powered up strategies needed more cards.
I know, right? Like a green-white enchantment EDH deck, it's already very powerful.
Oh, dude, I just roll my eyes. There's nothing that makes me mauled harder than enchantment strategies, bro, because it's just like you have every single piece you need to make it the most brutal thing ever. And there are strategies that are just dying for cards. But you know what? Go ahead. Just throw a dart at any green-white cards with the word enchantment on them, throw them into a deck, and it's probably going to kick our asses.
Sure. Yeah. And with this one, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a token that's a copy of it.
Sure.
Do this only once each turn. Sure. Yeah, why not?
We're running doubling season already. Let's talk extra tokens.
I mean, I just never run those effects because math is not my strong suit when it comes to MTG. Like, I can do math,
why we don't run Coat of Arms.
I'm just like not worried about doing all of that. However, this card is very good. It's very strong. Yeah, green-white enchantment decks, they have permanent destruction. They have exile spells. And then they also have all the card draw that comes from playing an Enchantress and then playing... You're just doing all of the things, and it is a snowball type effect. Like, you really do have to keep the enchantment player at bay, or they get out of hand very quickly. Yep. We talk about enchantments all the time on this channel, and the reason is because they are sticky and hard to deal with permanents. Like red, blue, black, they all have trouble with enchantments. Blue can bounce them, but red and black, it's like once they're on the battlefield, you're like, well, what the shit do we do about the enchantments? Where's my feed the swarm?
I need my feed the swarm.
I can only chaos warp so many times, So this is a strong card and definitely something you should keep on your radar.
Yep. Enchantment decks got some excellent toys. As did creature type decks. Titan of Lit Jara, 6 mana, 6/6 ETBs, choose a creature type. Love that for type decks. Titan of Lit Jara is the chosen type in addition to its other types. Okay? Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, here we go, right here, baby. You may draw a card, best 3 words in MTG, for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. If you do, discard a single card.
A singular card.
Hey, and that's just, look, when you see that line of text, what your brain needs to be doing is, oh, cool, more synergy with graveyard stuff. That's it.
Yeah.
Not that that's a downside. You just need to look at that and go, oh, cool, more upside. I can put a huge threat in my graveyard to reanimate for cheap. That's what you need to be looking at. I can pitch
this thing with flashback.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Titan of Lit Jara. It was cool that the Sliver decks also provided some other creature type strategies, some toys.
Yes, I like that as well, because obviously the slivers. Any new sliver, if you're a fan of slivers, you should probably be running the new sliver with the new effect for your slivers.
It's got some cool sliver stuff. Go get them.
But this does have more wide application, which is why it was a good choice for the list.
Yeah, absolutely. As was this. This is a
fun one.
This is another Enchantments Matters, but it's pretty brutal and fun.
It was really hard for me to not put this on the list because it is just so insanely up my alley as far as cards go. Big, splashy enchantment. 2 black, 5 other enchantment. When Cacophony Unleashed enters the battlefield, if you cast it, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. So you can plan for it. And whenever Cacophony Unleashed or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control until end of turn, this card becomes a legendary 6/6 Nightmare God creature with Menace and Death Touch. It's still an enchantment. So we have something that is kind of like a man enchantment. It reanimates itself based on if you're playing other enchantments, and you're able to get in with a big menacey Death Toucher. If they do double block it, you're killing both of the things. Otherwise, it's just getting through as a 6/6. Pretty fun card.
There was a commander in Commander Legends, I forget the name, but you can see it right here. I've put it on the screen here so that you can see what I'm talking about, that could reanimate enchantments. And it was like sack enchantments, bring enchantments back kind of commander. This at 7 mana is definitely the type of thing that I want to see in that deck. Menace and Death Touch is just such a nasty combo of keywords.
Oh yeah,
gotta love it.
You're talking about that Mardu, that 3-cost Mardu.
Yeah, I want to say it's like Gis or Gin or Weaver or something like that. They can see it right here on the screen. It doesn't matter if I don't know its name. I know that this card would be good in it, and I want to play it in that deck. What I also want to do is see the rest of this creature. I'm hoping that Cacophony is like some new bad guy in the next time we go to Theros.
Oh god.
And this is like a flash forward to that.
That's just the hand.
Yeah, but that looks like Nyx. That looks like not Nyx, but the Starfield, art style and whatever that represents in Theros. And so I'm hoping that this is something that we could see. Lore heads tell me if Cacophony was like an ancient demon that's already been dealt with. Jake, oh my god, a Sliver made the deck. This one says Sliver. It gives Slivers the ability to exile the top card of your library and play that card this turn if it deals combat damage to a player.
So Sliver's going wide and you're getting a bunch of impulse draws. It seems really strong.
We wanted to throw one Sliver on here so that you Sliver players wouldn't be like, you ignored us, we got new toys. Yes, we saw them. They're good in Sliver decks. If you have a Sliver deck, get those cards. Otherwise, widely not usable. Go Slivers. Descendant's Fury, though.
Go Slivers.
This is very usable. I actually just put this in my Edgar Markov deck.
Descendant's Fury, 1 red and 3 other for another enchantment. Ooh. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice one of them. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So yeah, you're just like, I'm going to sacrifice this little thing and let's go maybe find a big thing. And if you are able to manipulate the top of your library via top or any sort of scry effect, you're going to be able to get the most out of this card. Pretty fun.
Yeah, whenever you cast vampires with Edgar Markov, you automatically create the 1/1 vampire regardless of where he is. We all know how bullshit he is. But when you're making 1/1 vampires and you're going in, you're definitely connecting. And you can just sacrifice one of your vampire tokens and get a free vampire from your library onto the battlefield. You don't get the cast trigger again because Edgar's looking for the cast to create the 1/1. But getting the free vampire Nocturnus off the rip, giving everything an anthem and flying for free, not bad. And it's always going to hit the creature type. And that's just for the vampire deck. I know that like dragon deck, holy shit, getting a free 7 mana dragon onto the battlefield. Whew. This one I think has got a lot of play. This one is going to be one that you need to destroy. If someone's playing a creature type deck and they drop this on the battlefield, you better be saying in response disenchant very quickly, or you're going to have to deal with a lot of big creatures coming at your face.
I love that it's only 4 mana too.
I know. Talking about creatures coming at your face, How about another toy for Enchantress decks? Composer of Spring. This one's 2 mana, so you know it's going to get played. The only downside of this is that it's not an enchantment creature. Poor enchantment creatures. I mean, enchantment players not getting full 100% synergy on their cards. 1 green, 1 other, 1/3 Satyr Bard. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And if you control 6 or more enchantments, which I guarantee you will, faster than anybody can blink. Instead, you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So play an enchantment. I've got 10 1/1s on the battlefield. Play an enchantment. Drop my big finisher. We're gonna go Pathbreaker Ibex for this one. I'm gonna get crazy and say Pathbreaker Ibex for free. Swing for lethal. Thank you, Composer of Spring. This is a brutal card. I really think this one's going to have a lot of play in those decks.
Just have some payoffs. That's really what it comes down to. Whatever kind of payoff you want to put in there, there's going to be some good ones that are probably enchantments, but there's also going to be some good ones that you can run if you're going to be drawing so many cards when you're playing a deck like this, which you will, and you're going to be ramping.
Yes.
So have some big payoffs in the deck, whether you're able to cheat it out with the Composer of Spring, or whether you're going to just play them naturally when you ramp out all of your mana from just getting through the game. I don't hate having an Eldrazi in a deck like this, or, you know, a Blightsteel Colossus, which can get in and just be some big, huge finisher. I mean, why not?
Right.
You know, whatever you want to do. If it's a more competitive, it's going to be more tuned. Maybe you're just going to have a bunch of enchantment stuff. But if you like to just have, you know, the enchantment deck and then have a couple payoffs that are outside of that synergy, that's fun as well.
Composer of Spring be like, here comes the giant creature. Here comes the giant creature. Crater.
Oh, where'd you come from?
Crater of Behemoth. We're moving on from that. Jake, we got another enchantment. It's like we like enchantments around here.
This one never goes away.
One that's black, why I love
it. Yeah, 1 black, 2 other Ghoulish Impetus. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has Death Touch and is goaded. Whenever enchanted creature dies, return Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Remember that goaded means when you play this on something, it can attack everybody else, and it has to attack, but it cannot attack you.
I love these Impetus cards, and this one I think is one of the best I've ever seen. Death Touch is super underrated on here, because like you said, we're forcing, if we put this on our opponent's creature, which you can, you're forcing that opponent's creature to attack, and it can't attack you. And Death Touch means they're either going to lose something or it's not going to be blocked, quite honestly. It really, really keeps the blocker from wanting to block. Then, better than any Impetus I've ever seen.
It doesn't go away.
When it dies, it just returns to the battlefield.
Ugh.
And so you don't even care if they're like, look, I'm just going to block the Death Toucher. We're both going to lose our creatures, but we're getting rid of Ghoulish Impetus. No, you're not.
You may want to, but you need to have some other way of doing it.
Yep.
You got to exile this effect.
Yeah, these Impetus, some, you know, they're really hit and miss, but this one is a really nice entry into this cycle of these goaded enchantment aura removal things. And then remember, everybody, at the end of the game, when it's just you and one other person, you can just put it on your own creature and they can be +1/+1 Death Touch, and they're going to be swinging in anyway. So who cares about the goad? Jake, we've got an instant speed here for the Ancestors. It's another creature type deck card. Choose a creature type, look at the top 6. You can reveal any number of cards of the chosen type from among them, and put the revealed cards into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and it flashes back for just 1 more mana, still at instant speed. It flashes back.
This is really big. This came out of the Sliver deck, I'm guessing, right?
Yes.
So this is a very big if you are in any type of tribal effect. This is great. This is where you want to be. You're going to be able to fill your hand up, instant speed and flashback in green where you're ramping anyway. This is pretty sweet. I'm a fan.
It's kind of insane. I'm a big fan of this card too. I think that any creature type decks.
It just really gets you in the game. This is a card where it's like, it's very hard for me to pass up any hand that has this in my opener, unless I'm like low on mana. just because I know that this card is going to dig in and we're going to be getting a lot of stuff. You're not playing this in a deck where you don't have a lot of creatures of the chosen type. It's specific.
Right. Exactly.
A very specific card, but it thrives in that niche.
Oh, 100%. I mean, let's compare it to Divination. So Divination is 1 blue, 2 other, draw 2 cards. This is 1 green and sorcery speed. Exactly. This is 1 green, 2 other, instant speed. And just take all that text and replace it with draw 2 cards, but them be the exact cards you need, right? Choose the card, the creature type that you need. Dig into 6. If you can hit 2 in that 6, you've probably got the right ratio in there. And that would be, in my opinion, your floor, unless you're just getting super unlucky. But like 3 or 4 on average, that's a little higher, but very possible. And so I mean, the potential for this to be pay 3, draw 3, and it be 3 relevant cards, I just think that's wild. Really.
I also like it later in the game too, because it's like early on, you don't want to have to be pitching cards unless you have stuff that's like going to be good in the graveyard that you want to go there.
Right.
It's a great card for later in the game.
Right. But it also has flashback. And they go on the bottom of the library. They don't go in the graveyard. I think, honestly, if they went in the graveyard, it'd be even better. But going to the bottom, it's kind of a bummer.
You're right.
But
you're right. They go to the yard. Or they go to the bottom, not the yard.
It's got flashback,
Next up, we have Darksteel Monolith for 8. And this is a big splashy artifact. If it costs 8, it must do something great. Oh, indestructible. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a colorless spell you cast from your hand. So artifacts matters, Eldrazi matters. Once you get to this spell, you are doing some degenerate stuff. I'm sure a player much smarter than me is already like, oh yeah, you can go infinite with that.
Yeah, look, you can reduce the cost of this 8. You can cheat this artifact onto the battlefield. There are so many ways to not give 1 iota of care about it being an 8 mana permanent, but a free spell every turn built into your strategy, and this thing is indestructible.
Oh yeah, so you can't go infinite, thank God, because it's only once each turn.
Right, okay, once each turn. Yes. But I mean, 0 for 1 colorless spell
0
every
for
turn. Free Blightsteel Colossus, we'll take that. And honestly, the fact that you can do it the turn this hits as well, get it onto the battlefield. Then you get to immediately that turn drop something for 0 as long as it's colorless.
Yeah, it pays for itself, which is a big deal.
So quickly. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of this one. I think it's going to be a cool one for artifact decks. If you want to hang out with us, we are live every Wednesday night for the Jake and Joel Magic Show, covering MTG News, Commander, all the new sets that are constantly coming out. I know we're talking about Commander Masters and we are right in the middle of Eldraine, but we had to touch this right before we move on, even though Wizards wants us to move on faster and faster and faster.
That's right. There's always a new set coming out. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. It goes a long way and does a lot more than just sign you up for the next video. So if you enjoy our videos, if this is your second video, I implore you, click that button and show us your support. Thank you so much for hanging out and checking out these pickups of some cards that you may have missed from Commander Masters. There are so many cards. You may have missed them.
If you don't subscribe, Jake's going to swap the whole channel to Yu-Gi-Oh! So click that button.
Yeah, my collection doesn't want that either. It's going to be a terribly traumatic experience for me, so help me avoid that.
Please subscribe.